good to be back. We've been away, right?
Yeah, I guess we should start with an
We should
apology,
start.
right?
Yeah. We disappeared. We said, "Hey, listen, all singing, all dancing, new Web3 Digest show," and then we disappeared.
Yeah,
But for good reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've been sort of caught up in a lot of travel, and obviously it's that time of year as well where we do want to try and get away. But yeah, so I guess it all kind of started with our trip to New York. Right?
Yep. NFT New York. That was where. Yeah, I mean that's when all the travel started. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so we ventured off to the States, went to the NFT NYC event, which is probably a couple of months ago now. But it was cool, and I think we should probably focus on that for this show, right?
Yeah. We've got just a reminder, guys. We kind of do these little 15-minute burns, so I think we can definitely talk about NFT New York for about an hour and 15 minutes. So I think, but 15 minutes will be able to give you juicy highlights, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was, it was a few weeks back now, but I think the reality is I think there were so many kind of learning, so many things that sort of happened there that it's still very, very valid in terms of what's going on in the space 100%. And stuff as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was quite funny, I guess, Andrew, because I guess when we rocked up, we weren't quite sure what to expect.
No.
Right?
No. First time.
Well, yeah, first time. And I think also the week before, the crypto crashed.
Exactly. Yeah, in a big way.
In a big way. So all of a sudden it was like, from sort of highs of, I don't know, Bitcoin being what it was.
Yeah, and Ethereum and all the other business,
Right, so all of a sudden, it was like a 70% sort of drop in valuations. And for a lot of these people, as I think we've mentioned previously on this show, but there's a lot of people who is just 100% or very close to 100% invested in crypto.
Yeah, and also payments in crypto.
Yeah.
So they do you famously told the story of paying bets on kind of wallets when you're having a round of golf instead of cash.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's really upsets some people.
So a lot of people are not involved in the green, as it were, right?
Yeah, exactly. And even I remember that conversation, people were like, we're not even.
Yeah,
I don't have an ATM. I don't have a bank.
Exactly, done a bank account.
So interesting. I mean, so crypto obviously crashed. I think in some of the community groups that we're in, we were just seeing some sort of panic that was going on.
Yeah.
A few people were like, I've already booked my flight, but I don't know how I'm going to pay for my hotel. It was that kind of stuff that was going on. I think a lot of that was in jest. But I think what we saw was, I think it surprised me. I don't know about you, but it was certainly kind of eye-opening from my perspective.
No, I think it was that first kind of day fever. I remember you kind of got down there, I think, about earlier and said, "Oh look, I've managed to get in the hotel and stuff." And then I think it was a 5-minute gap, and I was in a insane queue to get into it wasn't a Marriott, right? The actual kind of registration and stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Just off Times Square. So
yeah, and I think that was the first indication, because I think I got in. I think it was a little more than 5 minutes. I had a call.
5 minutes. It was my 5 minutes.
It was an Andrew 5 minutes.
That was probably about 50 minutes.
Yeah. But it was. I walked straight in, and then but I saw how busy it was. I mean, it was just getting crazy. So I was kind of in and out. Got a registration badges and all that stuff.
But I think it's difficult to get a vibe like the night before or day before, because essentially New York is always busy.
Yeah.
So you don't know, obviously, at that point who's there for what, right? And obviously we're in a very busy part of town, just being off Times Square as well. So I mean, I think what was interesting. So first and foremost, how busy it was. That first session that we had, they were talking about 300 to 400 people there 4 years ago. It was spread across kind of 8 different locations. There was the main bit, obviously, there at the Marriott. But I think what's pretty cool is the diversity of the community, right? Mad mix.
And I think just for context, they were talking about 20,000 people this time.
Yes.
So real kind of jump from 300 to 400 to 20,000.
Massive leap. Yeah.
Like Andrew said, spread across sort of multiple venues across that kind of Times Square area.
That's right. Yeah.
But a real kind of eclectic mix. I mean, I think we kind of joke and say that we're the oldest people in this industry.
We are.
You are. But so I joke. But basically, it was really interesting to see that actually, you have got a bunch of really kind of young people that are involved in this, but actually you've got people that are significantly older than us who are, very, deeply sort of invested in in NFTs and Web3 as an overall space. And I think actually that whole the event, I think was interesting because, you know, it was obviously focused on NFTs to an extent, because obviously 2 or 3 years ago, that's what people were talking about.
Exactly.
Whereas I think the event in terms of actual content and topics was just so much more diverse.
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah, it definitely wasn't. And that was, I think that was shown by the tracks, the different tracks that people kind of got into. And then also, I mean, when we kind of registered, you know, you had different lanyards basically. So you had like an NFT collector lanyard, right? So they had a whole track on NFT collections, and they had like DeFi, then they had you know, music, sports, you know, I mean, tech. I mean, it was a real mix of tracks that you could essentially kind of go and jump into. And I actually quite like the format. So when we first looked at the kind of speaker roster, 1,600 speakers, and some of the sessions are 5 minutes, 10, and you're trying to work out. But it was quite smart. They managed to, you know, give massive opportunity for people to share in this space. And obviously the big headliners like, you know, Polygon and some of the other guys and MoonPay and some of these headline sponsors. But even that wasn't a sales pitch. They were kind of talking about new technology that they're working on. So I thought it was interesting that those, you know, vast number of speakers, whole host of different tracks. So you could, you know, find yourself in a track where 1 minute they're talking about, you know, kind of fashion, and then they're talking about NFTs for medical equipment. It was kind of a real eye opener, right?
Yeah, and I think, that's the first time I've seen that session structure as well.
Completely, yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you had some sessions that were literally 5-minute sessions.
5 minutes, yeah. And, one was, and you're talking about big people. So there was a head of business development for Rarible, which is obviously like OpenSea. You know, it's a marketplace for NFTs, right? They're big guys. And head of business development, British guy, stood up on stage and he's like, I'm going to talk about, you know, kind of successful utility on NFTs. And I've got 5 minutes. I can talk about it for, you know, like 6 hours. But he goes, that's cool. Got 5 minutes. So, you know, these are like top 5 things, which was great. It was kind of, there was no fluff.
No.
There literally was like no padding. There was no, there wasn't one session. Well, I mean, you and I go to a lot of these, you know, events, and we're quite lucky that we obviously cherry pick decent events, right? We're not there to waste time, but you and I have walked out on sessions before, or we've met up for a coffee, a beer, and gone, not sure. But this one, it was gold.
No, I agree. I agree. No, look, it was, and I think you're totally right. The fact that these sessions were so short, straight to the point,
punchy.
And I think there was just so many takeaways from it. And I think and again, it covered every aspect of sort of Web3, from, you know, development through to DAOs, through to crypto, through to, you know, obviously the different types of NFTs that are out there, the utility based. And I think the practical implementation piece was really interesting, because I think a couple of the takeaways from my side were just how real businesses and brands are really utilizing this technology already. And I think, you know, we kind of live in a place which is very kind of, you know, wants to be the center of this space almost, right? But actually the practical implementation and rollout perhaps hasn't happened on a brand level here. We're seeing signs of it, and I think we'll talk about that in future episodes. But, you know, but over in the States, it just feels like brands are being a little bit braver.
Yeah, and they've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, and they're saying, you know, and actually that's quite cool. I mean, Estee Lauder got up on stage, and funnily enough, Fade also is a different person. But someone who's at South by Southwest. Different person at this event. And ultimately saying the same thing, that look, we just didn't know what we were doing, so we just tried it.
Exactly.
We wanted to kind of understand it a little bit more. But the only way to understand things sometimes is by doing it.
Totally.
And you're talking about a huge sort of global brand, and still, and you know, and they're still kind of getting their sort of feet wet with this stuff, which I think is really interesting.
Well, I think I think, you know, a couple of takeaways for me. First and foremost, everyone who was kind of up on stage and sharing stories was dropping the phrase, you know, way back in 2019, or like way back in 2020, and you're like, Right, actually, yeah, this is new.
Yeah.
So as much as the technology and obviously blockchain 11, 12 years, the actual implementation, real projects, real brands, they're getting it. We're talking, 3 years, 4 years, Polygon, MoonPay, these companies have only been around for a couple of years. And they're now, I mean, hundreds of, millions, billion-dollar companies that are really operating in this space. So I think that's first and foremost that it is brand new. And that's difficult for sometimes for people to, for those brands, for those businesses to go, well, have you got any examples? No, right?
Yeah.
Because it's new, it's brand new. Yeah. So even the people that have been at it a long time have been at it 4 years, right?
Yeah.
So this is, I think, first and foremost, that was like a big takeaway for me. I think the incredible thing is the amount of love in the community as well. And the educational piece is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So we've spoken about this quite a lot, that, just being in Discords and tweets and, you people just want to share. This isn't a place where someone is trying to lord it over anyone, right? It really is just such an open community. And that was exactly the same right at NFT New York. It was massively open. Some people knew a lot, and then other people knew nothing. Right, it was just kind of wandering around, exploring the space, and I thought that was great as well.
Yeah, look, I think I think that's such an important point. We've been in the sort of digital space for a while, so we've seen that for kind of these evolutions.
And, with web, with social, with
with social, there was a bit of a land grab.
Apps.
Yeah, I mean, with Visa, it's always been about land grab in terms of okay, look, I want to be that person who knows everything about this, and I'll share if it suits me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this community is completely different.
Totally.
Unlike anything I've ever seen. The willingness to have open communication, to answer questions, to
and
just help. Yeah,
and collaborate.
And collaborate.
Oh, and collaborate. Just collaboration. Not let's talk out financials. Let's work out what this deal looks like. You're gonna have to pay me for your time.
Yeah.
Zero. It's collaboration. Yeah. Like in a very true sense.
Yeah. Which and I think that's the very kind of nature of this whole environment. And I think it almost doesn't work without this mindset.
Yes,
and again,
true.
it'll be interesting to see if that sort of continues over time, as this becomes a little bit more sort of commercialized.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I want to talk about social aspects before we wrap up the show.
Social aspects
of that event, because I think there's some interesting stuff going on there.
With Bored Ape Fest and
but in terms of just the summary of the show, in terms of the work side of it,
you mean like
the sessions and stuff?
So yeah, for me, I think it was so some of the key takeaways. First and foremost, now there was a few agencies there that were sharing case studies of brands. You're talking huge brands, so a lot of activity in the sports space at the moment, NBA, NFL, and the big kind of embrace there is with fan engagement. So NFTs ultimately that you can explore actually when you go to the game, as part of the game experience, and then online if you're watching it through scanning and collecting. The Mavericks did something pretty good. Sorry, the Milwaukee, what they called. Anyway, it's a few of the NBA teams had like a locker, so it's an NFT locker, and you collect stuff for your locker over the course of the season.
Okay.
So mass engagement, which I thought was pretty cool. There was a really cool mention of Macy's for the Macy's Day Parade. They relaunched an NFT, McLaren in Formula One. So it was good to see some kind of huge brands that are operating in that space, and there's some different things that are making it easier for people to kind of jump in. Some of the terminology was cool, so finding out that people that aren't in this space are called normies, as in normal people, I thought was quite funny. So like normies that don't have any understanding of that space, which was pretty good. But then I also just think the exposure to some of the companies that are operating in this space as well. So the connectivity through to security, and then I think that's kind of it. I mean, we can probably do a proper rundown, possibly in the growth show, our other show, which gives us a bit more longer time.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
But I think those are kind of some of the big things. But aside from that, obviously, I think just some of the other opportunities that we had to meet with people as well. I think those connections, we know now we've made connections that are business connections, personal friends connections now. And we're going to be collaborating on a few projects with people that we met as well.
Yeah, no, I think I think it was a huge event in that respect. Cool. So look, I think there's a couple of things that also I think people may have caught on social that was going on as well.
Yeah.
things like Ape Fest.
Ape Fest,
yeah. Talk about that?
Yeah, Ape Fest was, well, a conference within a conference almost, in that sense, but nothing really. They spent $20 million, right? 20 million, I think it was. So basically, the holders of, Bored Ape Yacht Club, obviously the apes that we're all familiar with, I think now had I think it does it disservice to call it a pop-up. Look, we didn't go in it, so I think we should be clear we're not ape holders. But they basically they had a pop-up, if you can call it that. So if you had kind of Bored Ape, Mutant Ape, you're able to access that environment.
Yeah, I think before the show you were saying it was like a festival in itself, right?
Yes, it was a festival. Yeah, it was called Ape Fest, and it was kind of artists, musics, kind of a whole different bunch of installs, which basically accumulated with Snoop Dogg and Eminem performed on kind of last night, parties every night. Steve Aoki, who's also a holder of Bored Ape, whole bunch of celebrities, because obviously a lot of celebrities hold that now. But just some incredible things happening in that space. Some of it was kind of tweeted out, leaked out, which was pretty cool. But yeah, it was. So that was one. I think one of the things that was pretty mad. I know that Doodles and Gutter Cats also had pop-ups as well. So again, this is some of that utility piece that we've spoken about in the past. When you look at some of these the profile pic kind of NFTs that don't really have any real utility with them. As far as access to things, what it is, the utility is access to community, access to these events, right, and the ability to kind of jump in on that.
Yeah, and there were some really good events. I mean, there was so much going on. I think the point is like
Madness.
morning, day, and night.
But that was quite funny because I went to a couple of early sessions and they were empty. and the guys on the stage were like, look, we know this crowd is like a party crowd. There was one guy who was up and he was like, I think I had 20 minutes sleep. But it's kind of that. So I think that was great. I think that was great. We got a chance to obviously meet up with the guys for Linksdale as well, so I think it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I think we've got a couple of minutes left, but I mean, again,
let's finish on Linksdale.
Yeah, when we're talking about communities on the back of basically an NFT purchase, again, we've spoken about Linksdale before, which is their objective is to buy or create the world's best sort of golf experience, golf course and golf club
for everyone.
Fully sort of inclusive experience for everyone. So. Actually, a couple of great days with them. So the first night, I think we went to a place called Five Iron, which is a golf simulation place. Hit some balls into a screen, had a few drinks, and then we went to dinner with the founding team after that, which was awesome.
Great,
again, got to meet some really good guys, really smart guys. And then the next day, I went and played a round with them as well. On this phenomenal course called Bayonne, which is we're literally. You get picked up by their own ferry at one of the kind of terminals in Manhattan and get taken to this ridiculous golf course just past there.
And you just managed to finish around before the heavens opened.
Yeah. I was super lucky in terms of the weather. But I mean, again, none of that would have been possible had we not purchased an NFT for $1,000, $2,500, maybe 6-7 months ago. And that community now is a big part of what we've kind of seen, learned, and sort of connect with. And the doors for that's opened has been phenomenal. So I think it's when it's all good when we're all Discord and Telegram, but when you go to these events and all of these communities are there in person, and you're seeing these people in real life, it makes everything all I think comes together.
Yeah, all clicks. Totally. Yeah, definitely. Good stuff. All right, guys. So we'll thanks for kind of taking the time to listen and watch us again. So Web3 Digest. We're trying to get back into the swing of things now. It's going to be a bit of a kind of hit and miss, I'd say, just because obviously with some of the travel, and we've got some more travel coming up for another event that we're talking about. But anyway, we'll catch you in a few. Cheers. Thanks, Amit.